So, hey Virgo, my name is Chris, and this is your beautiful reading for whenever you freaking find it in 2026. Why? Because 2026 is such a seismic shift year. The tides are turning in 2026. Everything changes. I'm not doing the Celtic cross for us. I'm doing, because I'm Virgo too, by the way. So this is our reading. There's the Ace of Pentacles and the Four of Swords. Let's just deal that as it comes up. 10 cards, not the Celtic cross, but 10 cards. There is the Three of Swords and the Queen of Wands, Seven of Swords and the Six of Pentacles. Okay. Then we got the Chariot and the Victory March. That looks pretty good. 2 more to go. The Hierophant and the World card. Bottom of the deck, the Two of Swords. Okay, so the Two of Swords is this energy where we should not lose the connection to our subconsciousness, to our feelings, but most likely to our subconsciousness. Underneath that, there's the King of Swords, King of Discernment, but this is the Two of Swords here. So we might think about stuff, right? We might analyze stuff a lot. That's totally fine. But don't lose the contact or the connection to the subconsciousness, meaning your intuition, meaning your feelings, gut feelings, things like that, water energy. So you're looking within, basically. That is the message here. To look within. Keep your thoughts sharp. Keep your mind, your discernment sharp. But trust your, factor in your intuition and your gut feelings. We're coming back to this, right? That's the main theme. That's the bottom of the deck, so to speak. Then we got, let's just deal with what is ending here. There's the Three of Swords. That is heartache, heartbreak. That's the Seven of Swords. That's the mindfuck energy. That's the narcissist of the tarot deck. That's our little friends here, right? Trying to mindfuck us. Heartbreak, heartache, swords energy. Seven of Swords, Three of Swords, right? You might have noticed that the world is full of mindfucks these days, right? Energies that are trying to manipulate us, mainly through guilt, fear, and shame, to our insecurities, and maybe even play us when it comes to our heart space, right? So there's heartache, heartbreak, and there's the narcissist of the tarot deck. There's also the World card, and there's also the Victory March. The World card indicates the closure of an old chapter, and I talked about this on and on all the freaking time. 2008, we started with Pluto in Capricorn, which was a very, very dark time. It lasted, I'm not sure, last year, something. But we're definitely in Pluto in Aquarius now. So that is a big shift, because Pluto in Capricorn was a time when it was all about mindfucks. It was all about being completely in our head, trying to check the boxes, doing 110% and running faster and faster. And if we just do 120%, we can totally make it, right? Exploiting ourselves, not being good and kind to ourselves, listening to all the freaking mind-fucking energy out there, right? Telling us, oh, you're not good enough. Who do you think you are, right? Guilt, fear, shame, projections, things like that, right? So there was a lot of narcissistic abuse and mindfuck energy, and that might have led to some sort of broken heart that you might still deal with. Either it's in the past or you're still kind of dealing with the aftermath of that. The message here is to heal that and be done with it, moving on from it. You got the Four of Swords here. That's the processing card. It's the healing card, where you use your mind not to think about mindfuck energy, You're not arguing, you're not defending, you're not engaging, you're not explaining, you're not personalizing all that what was thrown at us, right? Maybe there is betrayal, maybe there's narcissistic abuse, maybe there is a very, well, there's a broken heart in here, right? But it's thoughts connected. So I call this what it is, mindfuck, right? Manipulation. Spiritual warfare. We can also actually call it cognitive warfare, right? You know, some sort of playing us on guilt, fear, shame into anger and frustration, into heartache, heartbreak, into lower frequencies of our consciousness. That is the objective of all that mindfuck energy, of all that narcissistic abuse. Keep you down in frequency of your consciousness. Guilt, fear, shame, anger, frustration, ultimately hatred. If you live in hatred, you kind of become one of these people, right? Because they can't stand themselves. They have to attack other people. They have to push other people down in order to give themselves the false sense of elevation. It's not an actual sense. It's actually not elevation at all. I would argue if you push others down in order to give you the false sense of elevation, you're actually lowering your standards and lowering your frequency. But you create a gap, you know, the distance between you and the person you push down increases. And even if you sink down with the other person, you might take that illusion for real that you might elevate yourself, but it's an illusion. It's a false sense of elevation. But this is what the narcissist does. And we're living in a narcissist-infested world. And there's kind of this, can we call it a spiritual warfare, cognitive warfare, whatever it is, right? Healing from that, not taking the bait of the narcissist, not arguing with, you know, what happened. Maybe you had to get rid of a few people who were just really, really toxic. Close that chapter. And closing that chapter means that you no longer in your head constantly go back and think it through, in the sense that you defend yourself or overanalyze, over-explain yourself. Don't defend, don't engage, don't explain yourself, don't personalize whenever you're dealing with these people. Just block them out of your life, right? That's the healing process. That's breathwork, that's meditation you can do. When you get a lot of this energy to release, right? You want closure with that, you want to release that. 5 seconds in, 10 seconds out. Whatever you can do halfway comfortably. You can do 10 seconds in, 20 seconds out. Make sure that the out breath is 2 times that of the in breath. You're releasing negativity. That's very, very important. And combine that with meditation. Honestly, that's a daily frequent practice. That's your 4 of Swords here. That's the healing practice. And in doing so, you're kind of becoming an example for other people. Meditation, breathwork as a healing practice, and resisting the temptation to go back into overthinking mode, into arguing with what is, you know, radically accepting the world for what it is, full of these creatures who are obviously, I don't know how they became like that, but that's how they are. You might have noticed by now. So if you keep your focus, 2 of Swords energy, right? You look within, but not to overanalyze yourself, not introspection in the sense that you know, take the bait of the narcissist. Sometimes if we lived with narcissistic people for a very long time, we kind of internalize their BS, right? Who do you think you are? It's a good one, right? Who do you think you are? That's a really good one. For me as well, and maybe for you too, right? So there are certain phrases, certain questions that we used to react with over-explaining and justifying ourselves, you know, defending, engaging, explaining, personalizing, all that stuff that you should never ever do with a narcissist. If you're dealing with narcissists, don't defend, don't engage in the first place, don't explain yourself, don't personalize. That's super, super important. Dr. Ramani, I'm going to link some videos somewhere. Learn everything you can about narcissism and narcissistic abuse. So don't go back there in the sense that you try to analyze your own faults. You know, if you're resonating with this channel, you're probably a pretty decent human being, right? And these people are just not decent at all. So accept it. These people are in the world, and if you can close that chapter, forgive yourself in the sense that you took the bait of the narcissist, that you fell into these insecurities of believing that voice, believing that mindfuck of not being good enough. You know, all that weird porn that you watched 10 years ago. Oh, cold by milk. Fuck that, right? If you're resonating with this channel, right, the guilt, fear, and shame have a function. So if you kill somebody, you feel guilty. But if you kill somebody, you feel guilty for a reason. But if you're gay, if you're trans, if you watched some weird porn 10 years ago, you know, give me a break, right? That's just, you're not harming anybody, right? Everything, when we talk about basic ethical principle, right? That's kind of a rule of thumb for me, right? Consenting adults, good intention, nobody gets hurt. If somebody comes along and tells you, oh my God, fuck that, right? So that's just as a basic ethical guidance. Chances are, if you're resonating with this channel, you know, you might be too nice, in tendence, however you say this in English. Don't do that anymore, right? Whatever broken heart you've got, whatever toxic people you had to kick out of your life, maybe they abandoned you, maybe you had to kick them out of your life. The healing process is the most important, and meditation, breathwork, as I said, it's a daily practice. If you've never done it 5 minutes, you can do that, absolutely. And then go on with that. And sometimes I'm doing it for an hour, right? It's transforming your consciousness, and it's transforming. If you sit half an hour or an hour in silence with yourself, your subconsciousness will let you know if there's something unresolved, and take responsibility and deal with that, but not with some sort of shit-throwing narcissistic psychopath who thinks she can manipulate you through that guilt, fear, shame play, right? Heal yourself, respect yourself, be yourself a friend. That is the practice of the Hierophant, right? If you do that, if you not just do that, I mean, if you do that on a daily basis, it will literally transform your consciousness, right? So you will just be calmer, resting within yourself. You get a little more self-esteem. You're not easily triggered by, you're not constantly reacting to some stupid triggers. You're mindful enough to create a gap between a trigger and you're not just reacting to it, which is kind of involuntarily, you know, trigger, reaction. If you can create mindfulness as a daily practice, you can create that gap, you know, and you feel trigger, but you're not reacting to it, and you catch yourself. There is that trigger and there's that impulse for a reaction, but I can actually catch that and be mindful enough to look at it and decide, do I want to give that trigger a response, right? That's deliberate, that's not involuntary, that's reflected and, you know, conscious. Do I want to respond to that? Or does that not even deserve an answer or any form of, you know, response? That is, if you can do that through meditation and breathwork, then you're no longer falling prey to this guilt, fear, shame, anger, frustration game of the narcissist, right? And you can really close that chapter. And I think on a global scale, hopefully we're closing that chapter this year. there's the potential for wealth, abundance, and prosperity if you do that just by bringing yourself in a calm, mindful state, right? There's the universe trying to give you something back, Six of Pentacles. There's the Queen of Wands here as well, and the Queen of Wands is this energy that has also something to do with your mastery. That's fire energy, you know, not lashing out, not being easily triggered into a passionate reaction, but being actually in charge of your own, not just your thoughts, not just your inner state, but also the fire energy, right? Passion. Could be anger, could be sexuality as well, you know. Sexuality is also pretty good field where you can be easily played and manipulated from narcissistic people. So mindfuck energy, who do you think you are? Guilt, fear, shame, but also anger, frustration, strong, passionate tendencies, and also, of course, sexuality, right? So the Queen of Wands is aware of her own fire in sexuality, in anger, frustration, and fire is also associated with willpower, so she knows what she wants. And there's this symbology here with the sunflower and the black cat. Again, this combination, your subconsciousness, resting within yourself, right? Not going against your gut feeling, not going against your inner core, and not allowing anybody to make you absorb external frequencies. Always try to shine from within, be in control of your inner frequency. And, you know, you emit your own frequency, you set your own intention, you set your own inner tone, and allow nobody to override that or hijack that tone. You know, that is also the Queen of Wands, that's the Hierophant certainly, and that's the daily meditation and breathwork practice to release negativity, negative breathing, 1 in, 2 out, and not tap into these mindfuck frequencies again. Closure, that's what we want, and closure through inner mastership, I would say. And if you do that as a daily practice, right, if your willpower, your mind, cultivate that through meditation and breathwork, let your own frequency shine, set your inner frequency, and develop some awareness of that, right? How am I feeling right now? How is my inner state? Who am I? What am I thinking about? Am I tapping into some mindfuck trap, overthinking about nonsensical BS that somebody else suggested to me? Or am I in control, in center of my own frequency? Has everything to do with setting your own intention, right? Hierophant energy, Queen of Wands, meditation practice. And there is, if you do that, something will come out of it, right? You will manifest something. When I say manifest, you don't need to believe in manifestation and all that woo-woo esoteric stuff, right? The truth is just, if you are in a centered state of mind, of consciousness, something will come out of it. And if you set your own intention, it is more likely that that intention, that your energy goes into that direction of whatever intention you have set for yourself. And if you allow other people to hijack your center, your attention, then the energy goes into the direction that other people, you know, hijack it too. So whether you like the word manifestation or not, if you are in control of your consciousness, of your willpower, of your mind, of your passion, of your sexuality, of your fire, of your thoughts, if you're, you know, you can't be in super control of your emotions, but you can be mindful enough whether you give something a reaction or response or nothing at freaking all. And then you direct your inner focus, your inner fire, you know, all that jazz, right? And something will come out of it, right? And Six of Pentacles is that energy where something is balanced out, basically. So maybe you tapped into the trap of the narcissist in the past. Maybe you were thinking, maybe I am not good enough, right? Maybe I should be ashamed of that. And maybe I should, you know, don't get hijacked. And if you've been through a time where you had to learn that the hard time, Six of Pentacles, it seems like something is coming out of that. You know, you get something back just by having learned a heavy lesson in the last probably 9 or 10 years, maybe. Certainly since 2008. But in the last 9 years, the shit hit the fan, I would say. And if it hasn't hit you now, then you're totally sleeping. So just by dealing with that, you learn something, and by learning something new, self-discipline, self-mastery, being in control of your own consciousness, not being easily hijacked by these cognitive warfare strategies. That's exactly what they are. Something will come out of that. And if we do that as a collective, that's the victory, right? But if we're constantly overthinking everything, if we constantly question ourselves, if we constantly look for outside recognition or outside validation, if we constantly think, you know, if we don't think for ourselves, if we're not critically thinking, if we look for authority instead of insight and reason and compassion and understanding, if we are not willing to learn how to set our own frequency, then we will constantly observe the frequency around us. And the frequency around us can be set in a way to manipulate us and to keep us down. And that is what I call spiritual warfare. You might call it cognitive warfare or psychological warfare, but this is what we're living in right now. So meditation, breathwork is a daily practice to cultivate that. And, you know, it took me quite a few years to get there, but it can be done. And you better start today, right? If you have never done it, you can do it for 5 minutes. 10 of Pentacles, your Ace of Pentacles turning into the 10 of Pentacles. That's a beautiful energy. 3 cards come out. The King of Cups, the Moon card and the Sun card. That is your waking consciousness and your subconsciousness. They need to be in harmony. And negative narcissists, things like that, negative people, antagonistic people, narcissistic people, they always try to play you through your shadow aspect, so to speak. That's what Carl Jung called it. That's kind of represented as the Moon card here. That's the subconscious, right? So usually whenever we are experiencing guilt, fear, shame, whenever we experience something that we don't like about ourselves, we tend to try to negate it. So, but negation itself is the functionality of evil. That is very important. Keep that in mind. So negation as a primary function is the primary function of evil. So what we are all conditioned, mind-fucked into is, instead of dealing with negative feelings, we shove it under the rug. We push it into our subconsciousness. We try to negate it. That's where this energy finds it and runs with it. Gives it a different spin. Mixes it in with all sorts of shady nonsense that has nothing to do with it, but intermixes it basically with all sorts of BS and throws it back into our faces, right? And then we are getting into this defense game, you know, defending, engaging, explaining, personalizing, you know. And then that's the trap of the narcissist already. So we have all been conditioned to negate negative stuff, shadow stuff. Nobody wants to deal with that, right? We all just want to be the shiny side, the sunny side, right? Of course, yay. That's kind of the American culture as well. Sorry, Americans. It's a little bit better in Europe, but not much. But you kind of perfection that in the United States. Sorry to say that, but here we are. It's the Western culture, and you took the Western culture to the extreme, and you try to negate your own shadow. And you know, that bites you and bites all of us. You know, I'm just like you, right? I'm just grew up in Western Europe, so I internalized that as well. But this is how they get us, right? Guilt, fear, shame, right? Usually guilt, fear, shame. Everything we don't want to deal with it. They get it out, they sniff it out. They're very talented. Narcissistic, antagonistic, toxic people are very talented, almost like they are mind readers, or, you know, maybe they have, I mean, you can have, if you have a smartwatch, the smartwatch can basically tell you today how you feel, you know. You can hack that too, right? So, and maybe even AI can hack that just by looking at you, right? So shadow stuff can be exploited. It's the only way to be immune to that is if we integrate our shadow, reintegrate, get the fucking stuff from under the rug, have a good look and sort out what belongs to me, what does not belong to me, what are absolutely nonsensical BS accusations of all sorts of negative, toxic people who just threw their projections in there in the hope that you know, agree to it, or, you know, defend yourself and go into some sort of mindfuck drama with them so they can capture and hijack your energy and your frequency, lower your frequency. That's the game. You know, don't do that. And the best way not to do that is to integrate your consciousness, your waking consciousness, and the subconscious. And if you sit for half an hour in silence, you will know what is in your subconsciousness that needs to be dealt with. There's a reason why a lot of people cannot sit for 5 minutes in freaking silence with themselves alone in a room. No music, no water sounds, no shit, right? Just you alone in silence. A surprising amount of people cannot do that. Why? Because they can't stand their own freaking shadow. Easy prey for this energy. Easy, not for this energy, for this energy. That's the narcissist of the tarot deck, right? Easy prey. If you live in guilt, fear, shame, right? That's why certain forces in society are always trying to make it impossible to be yourself. You know, if you cannot stand up and say, oh, I'm gay, or I'm trans, or I'm this, I'm that, then the society forces you to shove stuff into your subconsciousness, right? Shadow stuff that is administered, shadow stuff on an institutional level. If you cannot be who you truly are in a society, then you're kind of forced to hide stuff of your own psyche, of your own consciousness. That is deeply narcissistic. That is systemic narcissism. So if you live in a halfway free and open society where you can be who you truly are, then by all means be who you truly are. Because if you're not, somebody will come along and play you, or try to play you with it. That's narcissism. That's narcissistic abuse. That's the time we live in, and that seems to be the big battle that is fought out right now, you know? I think Einstein was the one who said that he wasn't quite sure what is the weapon of World War III, right? But he said the World War IV would be fought out with sticks and stones, right? And I absolutely agree to that. But we know what the weapons of mass destruction are in World War III, and that is cognitive warfare. That is exactly playing, enslaving, destroying, recruiting people through guilt, fear, and shame. Because if you live constantly in guilt, fear, shame, if you can't stand an aspect of yourself, nobody can live like that. If you hate an aspect of yourself, nobody can live like that. Nobody can live like that, so you have to eventually externalize it. You have to throw it around. You have to say, oh, you have to find a scapegoat and say, oh, it's their fault. Yeah, externalization, projection, scapegoating. There you have your eternal war. Now I'm shutting up. We're not having that. We are not having that. We're meditating, we're doing breath work, we're integrating our shadow aspects, we're standing up for ourselves. We insist to be able as freaking grown-ups to say fuck on TV. If you can walk around grocery shopping with an assault rifle, dear Americans, you can also say fuck on TV on a freaking tarot card YouTube channel. Thank you very much. Now you get 3 quotes from me. And one is my most beloved, and I just traveled and it comes out. James Baldwin, it took me many years of vomiting up all the filth I'd been taught about myself and half-belief before I was able to walk on the earth as though as I had a right to be here. And I have a right to be here, and you have a right to be here as well. And don't you ever, ever again believe that energy that this would be otherwise. Let your why be inner peace. I'm not immune to this, right? I'm a little angry sometimes, right? As you might have noticed, because of all of this shady stuff that is going on in this world, and it is a systemic approach to lead people through guilt, fear, and shame, through disassociation from aspects of their own self, into hatred and anger and hatred, and through externalization. And then you're basically a slave. You know, if you can be constantly triggered through guilt, fear, and shame, and you're constantly not dealing with it, it also goes down into anger, hatred, and then externalization. So you're basically a soldier in the forever war. And that makes me a little angry, right? But let anger be a catalyst for change. Let anger be a catalyst to speak your truth, even if your voice is shaking. And let the intention behind it be inner peace and peace in general. There's a Hannah Arendt quote, those who choose the lesser evil forget very quickly that they chose evil. You're not choosing evil. You're choosing living in integrity and truthfulness. You're choosing to integrate your shadow. If there is something in your shadow that needs to be dealt with, then deal with it. That's what grown-up, responsible adults do. They don't externalize. They deal with their own shadow shit. And if you do that, nobody can play you. Nobody can mindfuck you. Nobody can manipulate you. And nobody can turn you into one of these people, right? That's all I got. Share, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about it. There's the fall and winter reading for 2026. I'm going to link this at the end. And I'm also linking a video of Dr. Ramani because she's fantastic. And I learned a lot throughout the last years from her. That whole don't defend, don't engage, don't explain, don't personalize, that's her thing. And what else is there? Yeah, check out your sun, moon, and rising if you want the full picture. And if you want to learn a little more about the tarot, right? Now,